Good morning. The June 14th, 2017 meeting of the Board of Estimate is now called to order. In the interest of promoting the order and efficiencies of these hearings, persons who are disruptive to the hearings will be asked to leave the hearing room immediately. Meetings of the Board of Estimates are open to the public for the duration of the meeting. The hearing room must be vacated at the conclusion of the meeting. Failure to comply may result in a charge of trespassing. Madam Deputy Controller, are there any corrections, additions, or deferrals on the agenda?
Good morning. For today's agenda, for page 7, item number 2, under the column that reads total liens, the amount currently reads $13,208.80. Please change that amount to $13,308.80. The board received protests from Ms. Kim Truehoff for all items on the agenda. The board did review her protest, however, it will not be heard. In addition, the board received for pages 3 to 4, item number 3, a protest from Ms. Christina Flowers on behalf of the Belvedere Real Care Providers. The board did review that protest and also determined it will not be heard. We have one item that is going to be moving to the non-routine agenda, and that is pages 101 to 102. In addition, I have the following abstentions to note. The Honorable Mayor Pugh will abstain on page 32, items 1 and 2. The Honorable President Young will abstain on pages 62 to 64. And there are no abstentions for the Honorable Comptroller Pratt. Mr. President and members of the board, those are the corrections, the 2 protests received, the item that's being moved to the non-routine, which again is pages 101 to 102, as well as the abstentions that have been reported today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from my office dated June the 12th, 2017, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections and additions that have been noted by the Deputy Controller. I will entertain a motion to approve all of the items contained on the routine agenda.
I move the approval of the items on the routine agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carried. The routine agenda has been adopted. The first item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 101 to 102, Minority and Women Business Opportunity Office, MBU. Report to the board on B50004056 Enterprise Technology Staffing. The parties please come forward. Okay. You can state your name.
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable board members. Courtney Billups, Chief of the Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office.
Okay. I just have 3 questions. Why have the vendors not met their goals? What efforts have they undertaken to meet their goals? And what efforts has the city undertaken to help them to meet their goals?
Good. You've got 3 firms that were awarded this particular contract. One of
Pull the mic to you.
I'm sorry.
Pull it towards you.
One of the firms has, in fact, achieved its MBE goal and is at 7.63% of its 10% WB goal. The other firm, Cognac Services, has only performed $28,000, almost $29,000 to date. The third firm, Trigen Technologies, has not performed any work to date. As we discussed before, this is staff augmentation. The agencies make the selection of who the placement will be, so the vendor doesn't have control over its performance per se. So that's, again, as I've said from the beginning, this is an ongoing issue, and you've got to continue to look at the process to make sure that everybody's getting an equal opportunity to supply individuals for this contract.
So let me ask you a question. So it doesn't appear that there's a first, second, or third call. So how is the staffing distributed, or how are these agencies recommended to the agencies? Because Trigen hasn't performed any work.
Good morning, Erin Sher Smith for Department of Finance, Bureau of Purchases. Each one of these vendors was assigned the contract and would have to provide resumes upon request of the agencies, and that's how this contract has worked. Trigen has received work, just they haven't received any work during this period for a new assignment. So the resumes are sent to the agencies, they review them, and they select them based on the qualifications of the applicant presented by that company, and therefore it is going to be up to the agency to see who meets their needs. And sometimes that resume can be provided by the prime contractor, sometimes by an MBE or WBE, but whether it's selected from one or the other is outside of the control of the contractors. And Cognac, for instance, actually just received their first assignment in February. That was the first time they had presented a resume that was acceptable to any agency.
Well, have we brought in the agencies along with the staffing companies to figure out what it is they're looking for? Because evidently the resumes that they send in are not the resumes that the agency is looking for. And maybe there needs to be a meeting between, you know, the vendors to figure out exactly what it is that they're looking for. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, we should be growing, you know, within our own city government, these type of qualifications by bringing people on board and getting them trained up so that we won't have to be dependent on this kind of stuff as we move forward.
I agree with that completely, and it's actually another factor that sometimes can make it difficult for these vendors. For instance, TCS had reported to me that they had achieved their goal, and then shortly thereafter, they lost one of their WBE employees because the city hired her.
Okay.
Well,
Madam Mayor.
first, let me just say, A, we're reviewing the process as it relates to purchasing. Two, when we set goals, goals are just goals. They're not, and what we've heretofore done is we set a goal and we think that that's where you're supposed to stop. A goal means that you try to achieve that goal and you can go above. Heretofore, that has not been the process with the Department of Purchasing for a number of years. So we are reviewing that entire process, you know, so that people understand what a goal means. It doesn't mean that you stop at 27% or there. And if you notice, a lot of the contracts, there's a hard stop at 27. There's a hard stop. And the other issue for us as we begin to continue to look at this process is how do we expand MBE, WBE participation when diversity continues to increase in our city, and we can't keep carving up the small pie as opposed to expanding the pie so that others get to share in this and we don't diminish the participation by other groups. So I believe that this whole process, well, we're looking at the entire process and how we set goals that are meaningful and encompassing and inclusionary of the entire population. So I think all of this deserves a review.
Okay.
Which is what we're doing, because as you know, we review all of these contracts prior to, but part of it is getting the departments, period, to understand what a goal means and how do we move forward to become more inclusive and more diverse in this contract negotiation. And the other thing is looking at, and this is the other thing that we've been discussing too, is looking at those who are state certified that are in our purview. Instead of taking people through this longevity process, that there be some reciprocity for already have gone through this process and they too be included in our group of folks, because the selection process, I believe, it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of notification and getting more people included in the MBE, WBE program, and we're looking at all of that.
I agree, because I stopped down at your office to talk to you about that, and they were saying something about the state's process is totally different from ours. So if we can make those two merge.
But the state process is probably closer to ours than some of our surrounding counties, so it should not be that difficult to take those, and we've had that conversation.
Right, okay.
Just if I may.
It's good news for me.
The city of Baltimore obviously has its own ordinance which requires its own certification. Our marketplace has been defined as the Baltimore market area, Baltimore City, and the 6 surrounding counties. The state has a national market. But we're confined to this market because about 70% of our purchases are within the Baltimore market area. In other words, we can't redress racial discrimination in public contracting for a Latino firm in Minneapolis
But what we're saying is that there are some folks who've gone through the state process
Right.
first before even coming to the city. So there are people who have gone through the state process that we don't have to, and so we can look at our process and sort of kind of figure out how do we match, even in our surrounding counties, so that we can get more people into this process. But of course, we want to make sure that the people in Baltimore, are certified at both levels and in areas around the state. I've had this conversation at the state level, having been a state legislator, even with my surrounding jurisdictions. How do we create reciprocity so that, this process is not so difficult, and that when we are looking at these contracts, and as you all know, I've said this time and time again, that I understand the language now, no way to segment contracts, when we know that there are ways that we can segment contracts. So we're reviewing this entire process, and it just, I think, so that we can be more inclusive.
Great, that's good news. Madam Comptroller, you wanted to respond?
Just per the mayor's instruction, we've identified approximately 1,500 firms that are in the Baltimore market area that are certified with the Maryland Department of Transportation that are not certified with Baltimore City. We're developing a one-page no-change affidavit. If they've been certified by MDOT within the last year, they provide tax returns, so we know that they meet their size standards, and we have requirements that you have to have an independent operating office in the Baltimore market area. We have to verify that, and we also have other requirements. You have to be in operation for 12 months. Those are two requirements that the state doesn't have. So we believe we plan to notify each one of those firms and provide them with that no-change affidavit, directions and instructions, and we hope to get an influx of certified MB firms.
Great, that's good news to hear. Madam Controller?
Yes, Aaron, do all three vendors submit on each agency request for staffing?
That is the requirement of the contract, and yesterday we discussed looking into it to make sure that the agencies are following that rule. A lot of these are not month to month, so it's not like a short-term project, but they may last 9 months, 18 months. So once that position is filled, it can be filled by that one contractor for quite some time.
Also, I noticed that the calculation was done for the time period, I think it started in February, and for TCS, it was as of through March 2017. And I think for CONAC, it was through April 30th, 2017. What I would like to see is you report back in July, at the end of our fiscal period, June 30th, to see where they are. And also, if you could make it cumulative, because the calculation here is just for that time period. So could you take it from the whole time of the contract?
Yes, we could do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank
you. This has been noted because it was just a report. There have been no more business.
And to report back.
And report back in
Close of fiscal year.
30 days. There have been no more business before the board. We will recess till bid opening at 12 noon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The Board of Ethics is now in session for the receiving and opening of bids. I have two addendum to read today. TR 17020, utility locating test holes and borings for engineering projects citywide. Please change the bid due date from June 14th to June 21st, 2017. B5000 4898, non-emergency medical transportation and Medicaid clients. Please change the bid due date from June 14th to June 28th, 2017. Those are the addenda for today.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
TR 17009, cement concrete slab repairs citywide 3. A bid bond is required if the amount is over $100,000. Royal Construction, Inc. with a bid bond. $627,517.45.
And you said with the bid bond, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
with the bid bond, thank you. Manuel Louise Construction Company, Inc., excuse me, with a bid bond. $884,050. Shouldn't be, actually. Let me see. Let me see if this is here. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. On the bottom. Thank you. There it is. Thank you. J Villa Construction, Inc. with a bid bond. $470,000. Great, wonderful. It's probably one here too. Okay. P. Flanagan and Sons Incorporated with a bid bond. $988,496.20. Santos Construction Company, Inc., with a bid bond. $570,250.
Refer these bids to the Department of Transportation for tabulation and report. Thank you.
WC 1361, AMI/R, urgent need metering infrastructure repair and replacement, various locations, 3-inch and larger water service. A bid bond is required if the amount is over $100,000. R.E. Harrington Plumbing and Heating Company, Inc., with a bid bond. $2,764,154. Metra Industries, with a bid bond. $3,093,600.
Refer these bids to the Department of Public Works for tabulation and report.
There being no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you.
You too.